What is up, everybody? We are live here with our mentorship weekly call, and I love on our calls bringing in experts because I want to learn from people who I admire. I want to learn from people who have achieved what I want to achieve. So I go out and make it a goal of mine to bring in the top people in our industry, high-level individuals. So today we have Brad Chandler. You guys probably seen him on my podcast. We're probably going to do another one soon. And today he's going to kind of tell us a little bit more about what he's got going on, how he's been able to. Well, I'll let Brad talk about it. But hey, Brad, thanks for coming. And if you're watching this live and you love what Brad has to say, leave a comment, say something. And if you're interested in our mentorship, not only do you get to come in here and, network with awesome individuals like this, but we work with you one-on-one. So Brad, you got it. Take it away, brother.
Yeah, man. So for those of you in real estate, I started a company called Express Home Buyers back in 2003. And since that time, we've bought, fixed, and sold over 4,000 houses, mostly in the DC, Maryland area, Washington, DC, Virginia, and Maryland. We have done houses all over the country, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about something even more important because Nathan here, he can teach you how to make millions in real estate. But if you have your millions, it doesn't mean that you're going to be happy. And I know that's a real thorn in some people's side because I've done a lot of videos on that. But nothing outside of yourself really brings you happiness. And once you learn that, oh my gosh, your entire world will change. So yeah, we're going to spend the next 50, 45 minutes or so talking about life, like really deep things in life and what's the cause of all of your problems and talk about like, what is the fix for it, right? I went through a major life transformation 2 years ago, and it so profoundly changed my life in every single area that I knew at that time that this is why God put me on this earth, is to help other people who are suffering and struggling figure out that they don't have to suffer and struggle. You do not have to suffer and struggle in your life. You weren't put here to struggle. You were put here to thrive, to have deeply connected relationships with other human beings. To help other people. So anyway, I just was rambling a little bit. Any questions or thoughts, or you want me to just keep
Oh,
on
no.
rocking?
I mean, we can interact if you're cool with that. If it doesn't throw off your groove.
At any point in time, you just let me know what your question is. So the basis of every problem in your life right now comes down to one thing. Who thinks this could be possible? Who thinks that every single problem you have, and most of us, most people have 5, 10 different problems, right? They're struggling with sleep, whatever it is. Does anyone think that this could be possible, that every single problem in your life comes down to one thing?
Well, I meant being a religious person, I would just be like, oh, that's got to be sin. If you make mistakes, it's all your problems. Like that's what, like growing up, right? But I don't know. I'm just throwing something out there.
So if sin isn't the answer, you're probably like, how could that be, right? How could one thing be my source of all problems, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
no idea.
So bad marriage, out of shape and need to lose weight, you're constantly stressed, you get angry a lot, you drink too much, you smoke too much weed, you have chaos in your business, you have health issues. Like I could go on and on and on and on forever. These are all vastly different things, right? Everything I mentioned, a bad marriage and weight loss, how do they go hand in hand? How does a bad marriage and your business, chaos in your business go hand in hand? So there is one thing that's the cause of every single problem in your life, your shitty relationship, your chaos in your business, and it's your thinking. Everything, every single problem in your life comes down to your thinking. So where does thinking go wrong? Right? It's again, now I'm saying it's simple, but if we were having this call 3 years ago, and you were telling me, Brad, everything's wrong in your life is thinking, I'd be like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. You're an idiot because my thinking's fine. I'm happy. I've got some money. I go on vacations. Like shit's good for me.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? Right. So where does the thinking go wrong? The thinking goes wrong from the stress and the stories that we tell ourselves. The stories come from the stress. So very, very few people on this planet got all of their childhood needs met. When you don't get your childhood needs met, you create a story. So something happens, you're 6 years old and something bad happens to you. What does that 6-year-old say? The 6-year-old says, I must be bad. At 47 years old, my subconscious brain, because I was that 6-year-old that something bad happened to. My dad made fun of me. My parents fought all the time. My dad would hit me with a belt. The one person in my life who was supposed to protect me was inflicting violence, pain, and shame on me. So, hey, you look up to your dad, nothing wrong with him. I'm 6 years old. Something must be wrong with me, right? So your brain is programmed. That's when all of your brain is programmed between the ages of actually the last trimester of the womb up until 10. So you got this programming that's stuck in your head, right? I'm not good enough. I don't belong. Therefore, I can't connect. I'll never get what I want in life. Never, never, never. And it's always one of those three things that is buried in your subconscious mind that is driving the behavior that causes the list. Remember the list I had earlier? The bad marriage, the out of shape, you eat too much, you drink too much, you're constantly stressed. All of that behavior is driven unconsciously by your thoughts that came about when you were freaking 6 years old.
It's crazy. Hey, Brad, I got something to say. So we started talking, I think it was a month or two ago that we got to know each other. Tom Kroll, a lot of people, high level individuals have advised going to therapy, right? And I know you work with a certain type of therapy. And so I started going because with my health insurance, I can actually go to a therapist for free. It doesn't cost me any money. So I'm like, hey, I'll go. And I was talking about a situation I had when I was a kid where there was something that happened with my dad. I would just say let's just say an altercation, right? We got kind of crazy. And my whole life I thought, oh, there's nothing wrong with him. I was stupid. I was a dumb kid. There was something wrong. I did it. And as I was talking through it, it's like, nah, man, you weren't dumb. You're a kid. You don't know what the heck you're doing. So it's true. Like you're saying, things can happen. I'm sure things have happened to everybody. Nobody's a perfect parent. I'm not saying this to hate on my dad. He knows I forgive him and it's all water in the bridge. It's all good. But yeah, it's totally true that for a long time, I was like, man, I'm the problem, right?
Yeah, that's what we do as kids because our brain is doing what it's supposed to do. It's helping us survive. So when something bad happens, how are we going to survive? We need to tell ourselves a story about that. So you said a couple of interesting things there that I want to touch on, Nathan. You made the comment that it's water under the bridge. Mm-hmm. And on a conscious level, yes, it's water under the bridge. You've forgiven your dad. But that doesn't mean that your behavior with your wife, when you guys get in an argument, that your subconscious mind isn't bringing up that instance where your dad made you feel a certain way.
Interesting.
So you can forgive someone on a conscious level and not forgive them on an unconscious level. So therapy is great, right? But do you know that I was in therapy for 30 years? I went to more marriage counseling sessions than I can count. All of my clients, all of the thousands of clients that my mentors have seen, every single one of them have gone to therapy. This isn't a knock on therapy. And what this is that therapy focuses on the symptoms and it also focuses on the conscious mind. The conscious mind isn't what's driving your behavior. When you get in an argument, the last argument you got in with your wife, pick whatever it's about, a messy room or something, right? She didn't get really angry at the messy room. It has nothing to do with it. It's her story that she's going back to, not consciously, unconsciously, and picking a story where someone did something that made her feel a certain way. She's wrapping that in saying, well, Nathan doesn't care enough about me to keep his room clean. So therefore, he doesn't love me. I'm not lovable. She's not having this conversation consciously, right? It's all unconscious.
I guarantee. I know that happens, bro. I can see it going. I can see it firing in that mind of hers.
Yeah. So, and you also said, this isn't to blame my dad. It's really interesting because 9 out of 10 of my clients, when I asked them on the intake form, did they have a happy childhood and were their childhood needs met? 9 out of 10 of them say yes. Why would they be coming and talking to me if that was the case? Within 15 minutes of talking to them, it's like, no, you did not have a happy childhood. Your needs weren't met. Is this for me to blame their parents and be like, no, your parents suck, go disown them? No, It is the exact opposite. What I want to get you to know, just like what I knew with my parents, is that They did the absolute best they could do given what they were given as a child. This didn't start with your parents. Your parents didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I'm going to screw up little Johnny. Their parents and their parents' parents and their parents' parents. It's called the multi-generational curse. What we do is we pass down this flawed thinking about ourselves unconsciously to our kids, and then we just repeat this all over again. So you have little Johnny as your kid. Little Johnny is unwhole because your subconscious mind has not taught him how to have self-love. So little Johnny goes and meets little Sally. I promise you, little Sally's not whole, because that's not how it works. You never go meet someone who's perfectly fine when you've got unresolved trauma or unresolved stress. You go and Sally and Johnny have another baby, and guess what? The same patterns are repeated. The same shit's repeated. Why do you have the same, most people want to say, why do I keep making losers? And I hate that word. I got to come up with another word. But if you've gone from one relationship to because no one's a loser. If you've gone from one relationship to the next, and the same shit's happening every single time, do you think that's like that is your unconscious mind going and finding those people that fit your trauma? So whoever created that stress in your life as a child, your subconscious mind, its only point is to keep you alive. It doesn't care if you're happy or sad. So what it says is, okay, that little Johnny survived the trauma of his father hitting him with a belt. I'm going to go find someone just like that so I can recreate the environment, because again, my only goal is to keep him alive. So that's why so often you marry your parent who created the stress in your life in the first place.
It's wild. Well, I mean, Brad, I've been reading a lot about, from your mentor and Scattered Minds. And it's like, it seems very difficult to raise a child without affecting them somehow emotionally, like the wrong way.
It is. And I'm so glad that you picked up that book, Scattered Minds by Gabor Mate. And unfortunately, I've read like 45 books in the last 2 years. And so I've only gotten through like a third of the book, a fourth of the book. Mm-hmm. But what I've learned so far in the book is that what does Western medicine want to do? Whether it's depression, anxiety, OCD, ADHD, ADD, they want to diagnose the person, label the person, and then give them drugs. Part of that book and part of his newest book, which is 600 pages, called The Myth of Normal, is that drugs can help people some of the time, and they can make things a little bit better, but they don't ever solve the underlying problem. And the problem always goes back to the unmet childhood needs. So there are so many doctors and there's so many people in this world that say, I was born with ADD. I am depressed. I am anxious. That's the way it's going to be the rest of my life. And I'm here to tell you that's absolute bullshit. It doesn't have to be that way. You have ADD, you have depression, you have anxiety, you have OCD because of what happened to you as a child. Now, people, for some reason, and Gabor also says that most diseases, cancer, MS, even diabetes, eczema, all are wrapped into this thing around unresolved trauma as a child and the stress that you carry. And people get really upset with that. And they're like, how can you say that? How can you say that? How can you say, it's genetic, it's genetic, it's genetic. Okay, so if I've got cancer and I'm believing it's genetic, I'm screwed, right? There's nothing I can do. Why would I ever want to take that to my grave? Why not be like, well, shit, maybe I do have cancer because I haven't dealt with my shit from childhood and I'm so distressed and everything inside of me is just wound up. And you can do something about it, right? Yeah. So I don't know why that's the case, but it is. These are all facts we're speaking here.
Yeah, that's, some people would dispute that, right? They'd be like, nah, there's no way you can overcome cancer with your mindset, right? But, or like handling past traumas. But, I don't know how you could overcome. I mean, is that something you're saying, that like someone has cancer, they can beat it through handling past traumas?
So it's not me that's saying it, because I'm not a doctor. All I'm doing is I'm reading from these doctors. Go to the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Austin, Texas. Go Google it right now. Go to their website. Mm-hmm. They are one of the foremost cancer research institutes and treatment centers, I think, in the world. It says right on their website, stress fuels cancer. We don't know if it causes it, Yet you're going to find out it does. And many doctors believe it does. But right on the number one, one of the number one things, it says that stress, it fuels it. So does stress fuel it? If stress fuels it, if you remove the stress, wouldn't it make sense that it's going to take away the fuel to grow the cancer?
Yeah.
Nathan, what you got?
Hey, Brad, good to see you again.
You too, man.
So a lot of it, well, real quick, I'll just kind of piggyback of what you're talking about with the stress and cancer. So I actually have personal experience in my life to where, so my mother passed away in 2016 at age 52. And it's, due to cancer. And, when people ask me about it, it's, love my mother, but really was no surprise. I mean, it was just like an everyday, very high, between stress and sleep. I mean, she was like one of those people to where it's always working, nonstop, going. Very, very little sleep and just high strung, high stress, 24/7. And just kind of my journey and what little bit, I've kind of read and learned about health. I mean, just kind of being able to reflect and look back on kind of how she, lived that life. It's no surprise to me that, that was kind of the unfortunate circumstance that kind of happened with her. And then my question though is, you talk a lot about how it all kind of boils down to the childhood trauma. I'm curious, is it possible for trauma to kind of be an underlying cause at a later point in life, in adulthood, if there's a traumatic experience or something like that, or is it processed differently and
yeah, I mean, yeah, great question. So comment on your mom. Sleep is an issue of the mind, right? You can't sleep is if something is on our mind, not wrong with our mind, on our mind. So when you do this work, if you have sleep issues, because when you were born as a baby, you didn't have sleep issues. Oh, and by the way, you didn't have ADD issues or weight issues or any of that stuff.
Right.
So your mom probably had a lot of unmet needs as a child, right? And she didn't deal with them and probably didn't know how. A lot of people just don't even know that there's a way to fix these things. And frankly, now to try to find a therapist, it's nearly impossible. I mean, they're so full. So your question is, could it come later in life? I'm going to share a story with you that's really incredible. At least in my opinion. What percentage? And this is going to answer your question, Nathan. What percentage of combat veterans that come back from combat do you think have PTSD? Just throw out a percentage.
40.
40. Nathan, what do you think, Payne?
85%. I'd say a lot.
So that was my guess, 85%. You know what the true number is?
100%.
15%. Why is that? Why is who are the 15% that are having childhood trauma or having PTSD? The thought is that those 15% of people were the ones who had severe trauma as a child, and that's what brought on the PTSD, not the actual combat. Crazy. I'm not making this up. This is like fact. So could it happen? Yes, it could happen. But when I hear of like my mom died when I was 26 years old and my wheels came off, I do a little bit of more research and I go back. The mother dying was just a trigger for unresolved stuff that was never dealt with from childhood. That's been my experience. Could someone have a perfect childhood, go get into a horrific car accident and have PTSD? Absolutely. Does it happen much? My guess, it doesn't happen much, but that's my guess.
Okay. Yeah. That's a good answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm not a big fan of the word trauma. And here's why I'm not a big fan of the word trauma, because when people hear trauma, they tune out. And they tune out because, well, he's talking about childhood trauma. I didn't have any, right? That would have been me 3 years ago. I'd have tuned you out if you said childhood trauma. There's as Gabor says, who wrote that book you're reading, Nathan, there's big T trauma and little T trauma. Big T trauma is you might have been molested by a family member or a relative, whoever. Little T trauma is your sister comes home from being born from the hospital and you feel like your parents or your mom or your dad love her more than they love you. That's little trauma. Something that benign can cause someone to, be a meth addict for just an example. So don't think that when you hear the word trauma, that something really big had to happen to you. And most of my clients, and I even did this myself, after I went through this 3-hour complete transformation where I walked out of there a completely different human being, I started thinking like, wait, it wasn't that bad for me. Yes, I got hit with a belt. Yes, there was a lot of fighting in my house. Yes, my dad made fun of me and some other things, but I mean, I didn't get molested. I didn't get beaten, punched out, knocked out. I didn't get put in a cage. Why do I have it this way? And I've learned that that's just pointless. It's just like comparing yourself to someone and their level of trauma is completely pointless. All that matters is you're a child, you didn't get your needs met, you developed the coping mechanism that served you when you were 6, but at 26, 46, 66, it's not serving you. And if you want to look at every single problem in your life, I guarantee you can be traced back to the thinking, the flawed thinking, the untruths that come from those coping mechanisms that were created when you were younger than 10 years old.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, comparison doesn't ever help. It seems like.
No. So there's a number of business people on here. Let's talk a little bit about business and how this affects things. Before I do that though, the trauma in the traumatic event, Gabor Mate says this. The trauma isn't the actual thing that happened to you. That is a traumatic event. The trauma is what you told yourself about that event. Think about that. It's really powerful. Getting hit or getting raped, terrible things, right? But what's even more terrible is what you told yourself and what you feel about that event. So anyway, something to think about.
Well, that's interesting. You're right. It's like the way that you perceived whatever happened. Like the same thing could happen to you as could happen to me, but depending on our thought process, it can affect us differently, right?
Dude, I go to Whole Foods tonight at 5:00, and my Whole Foods is crazy. They have like 3 restaurants in there, and one of them is a sports bar. Let's say I stand up on the table and I start talking about how important self-love is. Mm-hmm. This is the greatest thing ever. I've become free. I found self-love by turning around these childhood untruths, which is all true. There's going to be 3 people in that room that feel, one's going to be like, I'm scared of this guy. He's crazy. I'm going to leave. The other person's going to be like, holy crap, he's speaking to me. Oh my God, I'm going to change my life. And then the third person might be like, doesn't even hear me. That's just like, all right, whatever. Right. So that's it. Like we all interpret things different. And, in Gabor's book, you've read it. This was just the chapter I read yesterday. When you have siblings, your parents don't ever parent the same way. So you could have a child that comes out of a household that's completely radically different from the other one because it was 6 years later, or, it was a time where they had financial distress or didn't have financial distress. So yeah, everything is how the meaning that you place on the events that happen to you in your life. So how does this all when I said this affects every area of your life, I mean it. So from a business standpoint, over the last 20 years, I've lost $9 million from 5 business mistakes. And those 5 business mistakes were my unconscious brain trying to prove my worth to the world by taking these crazy gambles and getting in lawsuits that I never should have gotten into. So
that's crazy, man.
It's crazy, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
It's wild.
And the chaos that I had in my business was insane. Like I created chaos because I think I didn't like my state. So I was always kind of just trying to distract myself. The shiny object syndrome, you hear that a lot in entrepreneurs. What is the shiny object syndrome? It's chasing something that looks shiny, right? But why are you chasing that thing that's shiny, right? Maybe you're chasing that thing that's shiny because if you get that shiny thing, you might think it'll bring you happiness or worthiness. My friend Annie on my podcast last week, I have a podcast, How to Be Happier. She deals with a lot of entrepreneurs, and she says almost every entrepreneur she's ever met had control issues as a child. Well, anytime you go through stress, you have lack of control. So she's like, why do entrepreneurs start businesses? So they can control everything. Why I started my business probably was that, but maybe even bigger it was always about money to me. If I can make a lot of money, I can prove my worth. So yes, I made millions. Yes, I lost millions. And now in the last 2 years, I've shifted from, I don't need to prove anything. And that's where I got my freedom from. Because the untruths I told myself, that because my dad hit me, I was bad and so I wasn't enough. That's a lie. So now I believe I'm enough, which is giving me my freedom. So now I don't have to prove, I don't need to go out and make a bunch of money. So what's my purpose in business and life? It's to make the greatest impact. Why am I on this call right now? It's because I want to give the freedom and the happiness that I found over the last 2 years to everyone who wants to listen. Anyone who wants to make a change in their life and has a willingness to look at things from a different perspective, I want them to get this. So my business last year, we had one of our best years ever. Do you think there's a coincidence there? Because I'm not chasing a bunch of shiny objects and starting new markets and trying everything under the sun. I'm focused on, how are my people doing? How can I help them find happiness and peace and joy in their life? Of course, they're operating at a higher level. We have the best team and best culture we've ever had in 20 years in business. So when I say this permeates every area of your life, I really mean it. Yeah. And how do you fix it all? You turn around those untruths, and then everything in your world will change.
I love it. So do you have any application, anything that you can advise people to do, like maybe at home, or I know they can reach out to you for more information, but is there anything that you can like advise to help people?
I got all kinds of stuff. We talked last time about the quiz. I didn't have it up and running. I've got it up and running now.
Go ahead. You can share your screen.
We could actually. You
can share your screen if you want.
Yeah, I don't even need to. Like, we could go through and for the folks listening or listening in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just go through these 12 questions, and I'll show you how to score them, and then I'll share with you something else that you can actually use at home all the time that will instantly start to help your relationships.
Let's do it.
So this is a 12 question quiz that I developed, and the reason I developed it was because if I was on this call 3 years ago, I would have already tuned out, because I would have been like, if self-love is what we're trying to get here, I already have self-love. And after, going through my transformation and realizing I really didn't. I did not have self-love. And how does change begin, guys? All change begins with awareness. So if you're sitting there and you're like, nah, man, I'm good. Really good chance you're not good, right? So, so here's there's just 12 questions. I'm going to go kind of quickly. And one is never.
Got the book out, ready.
Yep. All right. Number 1 is never. Number 2 is seldom. Number 3 is sometimes. 4 is often, and 5 is always. So basically, just remember, if the answer is no, it's a 1. If the answer is yes, it's a 5. And I'll remind you a couple of times here. So, do you have trouble experiencing deeply connected, passionate, intimate relationships with someone you feel safe with? If it's no, I have not had a passionate relationship forever, deeply connected, you're going to put 1 for never. If you're like, man, I've got the greatest relationship in the world and have for 20 years, put a 5. If it's somewhere in between, put a 2, 3, or 4. Next question. Do you find yourself judging others on a regular basis? If the answer is shit all the time, give yourself a 5. If it's never, give yourself a 1. If it's somewhere in between. Third question, do you judge yourself on a regular basis? And I want you to write these numbers down, because we're going to tell them at the end. Do you judge yourself on a regular basis? If the answer is never, hell no, I never talk bad to myself, never judge myself, it's a 1. If I'm always judging myself or do it a lot, it's a 5. Number 4, do you talk negatively to yourself on a regular basis? Never would be a 1, always would be a 5. Next question, do you find yourself getting super frustrated with small things that others may not get irritated over? If you do that all the time, it's a 5. If you never do it, it's a 1. Again, you can score sometime. The answer for 3 is always sometimes. So if you feel, sometimes, give yourself a 3. Do you take things personally and frequently get upset by others' actions? 1 is never, 5 is always, 3 is sometimes. Do you have an addiction to anything? Alcohol, drugs, food, gambling, sex, shopping, pornography, working. If you work 10 hours a day, you got an addiction to working. So do you have an addiction to anything?
Dang, I was like, I'm good on all those. And then you said working. I'm like, oh shoot.
Yeah. So usually people who work all the time, it's a distraction. It's to distract their mind from how they feel about themselves. So if you have an addiction to anything, it's 5 is always, 1 is never. No, I'm not addicted to anything, put a 1. Do you have self-destructive behaviors? Now, I can't list all the self-destructive behaviors. I'm going to list some of them. This isn't an exhaustive list. Do you drink too much? Do you come home and drink 2 or 3 glasses of wine every night? Do you overeat? Do you use drug use? Do you use drugs? Sorry. Do you have risky sexual behavior? Do you have suicidal thoughts? Do you have self-injury? Anything that's like a hurt or pain or just not good for yourself, are you doing it? If never, put a 1. If always, put a 5. Do you need substances or other things to make you feel better when dealing with mental pain, stress, fear, or sadness? So in your life, when you face some type of stress, fear, and sadness, do you always turn to weed, food, alcohol, whatever, gambling? So you need substances to deal with that. If it's no, I don't, I cope fine, it's a 1. If every time you get stressed, you go for a cigarette or a joint or a beer, then it's a 5. Do you put others' needs before yours regularly? 1 would be never. Man, I'm always putting people's needs in front of myself. Then that would be 5. No, question 11. Do you often feel guilty or ashamed? If it's all the time, 5. If it's never, it's a 1. And if it's sometimes, it's a 3. And then final question. Do you have trouble handling criticism from others without getting super upset? Someone gives you some criticism, it doesn't bother me for the most part. So you have trouble, put it a 5. Yes, I have trouble. You don't have trouble? Nah, I never have trouble. It's a 1.
Will you do 11 again, please?
Yeah. Do you often feel guilty or ashamed? If you often feel guilty, ashamed, always put a 5. If you're like, no, I don't have any guilt or shame in my life, it's a 1. And oh shit, sometimes I do feel it. So total those numbers up. And if you are a 32 and higher, you have lack of self-love. If you have lack of self-love, it's because you're telling yourself stories. And if you have lack of self-love and you're telling yourself these stories, I promise you that your relationships with your wife, the way you parent your kids, your health, your business, everything is affected. If you have a score between 24 and 31, you have mild self-love, and anything 24 and below is extreme self-love. Now, why is this helpful? Obviously, if I'd have taken this quiz 3 years ago and saw, wow, I really lack some self-love. How is this affecting me? Well, it's affecting everything. Then I would have been able to make a change sooner, or 10 years ago, or 15 years ago. So if I went too fast, or you came in halfway in on this, and you want to take this quiz, just go to bradchandler.com/quiz. It's free. Don't need to sign up for anything, and you can take it as many times as you want.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think people will be able to put this, this is actually going to our YouTube channel right now. So people will be able to watch this. Yeah, this is sweet.
Brad,
so any questions on that?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so for a totally hypothetical, for somebody that's in a 24 to 31 range and they're in the mild self-love, or even someone that's 32 or higher, someone that says, okay, I've got some work to do in this area. I guess, what are the next steps from here? So if I, hey, I'm in that mild self-love range, I've got some work to do, like, okay, cool. I've recognized, we've been able to identify that, hey, I need work in this area. What's the best, next steps from here?
Yeah, I think my next version of the test is going to be breaking down each question and maybe giving some pointers around that. I don't have that yet, but in general, Nathan, if you're in one of those 2 lower categories, it means that your life can be improved drastically. And so what you have to do is you have to have someone who's qualified, or, the very rare person can do this on your own, but you got to really like get into a relaxed state. Like I use hypnosis, which is really just a deep relaxed state that will allow you to focus in on your subconscious mind. And then you just ask your subconscious mind, like, what's causing me this? What's causing me my depression? What's causing me my anxiety? What's causing me to eat, drink at night? And your subconscious mind, it's crazy. Like, I've done this lots of times. It always goes back to the source of the pain. And then you just figure out what are the stories you told. And then through neuroplasticity, which is your brain's natural ability to grow new neural pathways, which will change your thinking and then radically change your behavior. What I do with my clients in week 3 of the 5-week program is at the end of the 3-week hypnosis session, they have a recording that they listen to as they go to sleep each night when their brain is in an alpha wave state, which is the most suggestible state that your brain can be in. And literally they just change their thinking. They change that unconscious thoughts that are buried in them that are driving these behaviors. But anyone who's listening to this that didn't score extreme self-love, the great part is, this is like a real gift and a blessing, is that your life, if you think your life is good now, because I thought my life was good 3 years ago, and it was. It was good. I was happy for the most part, but man, I wasn't free. I wasn't free to be my authentic self. If you have those 2 lower categories, it's going to be really, really, really hard for you to have a deeply connected, committed relationship. So I didn't have a deeply connected relationship, and I needed alcohol and weed to make myself feel comfortable in social situations. And now guess what? I don't. 2 years into this, I think next week will be my 2 years of zero drink. I haven't touched it to my lips. 2 years.
Let's go.
Yeah, and I didn't have a problem. I wasn't addicted to it, but I used it as a crutch to make me feel better. I used to play in golf tournaments, and I would get so nervous that I barely could hit the ball unless I was like drinking heavily. Now I play in golf tournaments. I don't need any of it. So I got my freedom. So the blessing is, if you don't have extreme self-love and you've got one of those 2 categories, is, man, are you in for a ride if you decide to do this work, because everything in your life will change for the better.
Man, that's powerful stuff right there.
That's awesome. Exciting. Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, dude.
Joe B. Evans, AJ, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to comment in the section or chat. It's whatever. It's not just for us. We got this for everybody. So, man, that's awesome, Brad. I love that. I think that's awesome. I like that quiz, because I don't think there's anyone that probably has a perfect, a perfect score on that. I'm sure everybody, struggles with a little bit, unless you unless you know somebody that was like hit all the top marks,
Yeah, no. Like, I obviously fall in the extreme self-love, but did I give myself, the perfect top mark on every single one of them? Probably not, but I'm pretty damn close. And this doesn't have to take years and months and months and months of work. You can make these with my clients. It's been about the 3 to 4 hour mark of working with them where there was just a radical transformation. And when I look back at my work with the ex-Navy SEAL, it was the same exact thing. It was a 3-hour session. I came out after 3 hours. Do you know how many hours I spent in therapy and marriage counseling? Like, honestly, if I had to guess, let's say I went to 50 marriage counseling, that's 50 hours there. And then on my own for 30 years. So maybe I went to 200 hours of therapy and counseling and stuff. And in 3 hours, I got 100-fold out of those 200 hours that I'd spent in counseling and therapy.
So let me ask you this. If I haven't really heard too much about this until we started talking, but if it was so effective, why do you think there's so much counselors and this isn't just blowing up? Is this new? Is this a new technique or?
No, hypnosis has been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. It's the same reason. You could ask this about pretty much anything in the world we're at, right? Why are the antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications skyrocketing, but hospitalizations are, right? There's not a ton of money in this. So unfortunately in life, you always have to follow the money trail, right?
Gotcha.
And I think that we could literally, if people wanted to change, this is 99% of all the world's problems, from our prisons being full to the war in Ukraine, all comes down to an individual's lack of self-love. And the only reason someone can lack self-love is because of the thoughts that they tell themselves, because every single human being, from Hitler to Jesus, wasn't born a madman monster, right? So everyone could change and the whole world could change if this was implemented. And this is why you see it, why I have so much passion. It's just like, why don't more people talk about this? Why do people go to therapy for 20 years? Do you know 83% of Americans identify as not being very happy? So you put lawyers in that category, you put car mechanics in that category. Guess what? You put therapists in that category. So 83% of a therapist, there's a lot of therapists that are a complete mess. Like, how can they tell someone how to change their life when they need help themselves, right? And this isn't a knock on therapists. There's plenty of amazing therapists who change people's lives all the time. That's not the point. The point is answering your question. What? I don't know. But and this is why I'm on every show and every podcast I can possibly give, because it's just like, hey guys, there is a better way. You don't have to suffer. If you really want to change, you can change in 3 to 5 hours and your life can be radically different.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand what you're saying now. Like, it's for example, it's even with wholesaling real estate. You could preach from the tops and be like, hey, this is the best way to make money, like with the lowest amount of risk. People are just one ear out the other, right? They're like, whatever. So I think when it requires action, I think a lot of people are, don't do it.
Well, so a couple good points there. There's a lot of people that will listen to this and be like, the guy's, he's just making this up. It's impossible. It's fine. If you want to think that's fine. The second thing is there's a lot of people, close friends that I have, and I go, hey, here's where you are. Here's what you would need to do to get to where you want to be. And they're like, you know what? It's a little scary and I'm okay. I'm not great, but I'm okay. So I'm just going to stay here. Our minds tend to do what is familiar to us. So that's why you see people in relationship after relationship, and it almost becomes comfortable for people to be in these terrible relationships because that's all they ever knew.
Right.
And they don't want to break out. Pain, there's a famous saying by someone, pain moves through families until someone's ready to feel it. A lot of people aren't ready to feel it. And what I hopefully what I leave with this, leave this earth with is helping one person in a family that then is that lighthouse for the rest of their family to literally change generations to come. They can help their parents, they can help their kids, they can help their siblings. And so, yeah, that's part of my goal is just to spread this. I'm 49 years old. This is all I'll do the rest of my life. I hope to live to be 110, and I hope I impact a lot of people's lives.
That's dang powerful right there, to find something that you're like, I'm gonna do this forever.
I think you'll be able to add a +1 to that list. I don't know if you guys saw in the chat, Joe, who's here with us, he had commented, phenomenal. Thank you so much. I believe so much in this. My wife and I are going to schedule a call. So that's awesome.
Awesome. Love it. Love it.
And my goal is to put the right information in front of everybody, right? Like that's what I want to do, because with all the disinformation out there, like it's really hard to like know what's the right activities, what's the right actions to do. So yeah, thanks for making that easier for me to help Joe, help everyone in here, and help me too.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. It's life-changing stuff, man. I mean, you can believe it. I mean, you can keep suffering, keep going to your therapist, keep your shitty marriage, keep your overweight and your unhealthy body, or you can be like, what do I have to lose calling this guy? He's going to give me a free 30-minute freedom and happiness call. Why don't I call him and see if he can help me? And if I'm not a fit, like I'm in the business of helping people, right? If you can't afford me or again, there's just not a fit, like I'm not going to leave you hanging. Like I'm going to try everything I can do to get you help to stop your suffering and have just an amazing, joyful life, because that's what we're all deserving of.
Brad, is this something, if someone were to work with you, is this something they have to go fly out and meet you, or is it virtual? Like, how does that work?
No, it's a 5-week, it's all over Zoom, man. It's all virtual. Yep. Sweet. Now look, down the road, I've got all kinds of cool things. We're gonna do this on 50-foot yachts and stuff in the Caribbean, and I'll fly people in for the weekend. But right now, no, it's just it's been extremely effective over 5 weeks over Zoom.
That's dope.
That's awesome. Tomorrow, some other really cool stuff. I'm launching a Facebook group called How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. Tomorrow, literally, is my big launch. So if anyone wants to join that, just go to bradchandler.com/Facebook, and it will automatically forward you to the Facebook group. And we're going to have some really cool things in there.
Brad, drop that link as well in the Discord, and we'll put it all over.
Okay.
when
Cool.
you get
Well,
the chance.
what questions or doubts, or does anyone sitting there thinking like, hey, this guy's nuts, or he, he said this, but anything like, I'd love to be challenged. I love to,
I want to
learn
ask.
something.
I want to ask you if you get challenged a lot, because everything I've heard, I'm like, makes sense. Do people say, bro, you're full of it? Like, I'm curious about your experience with this message.
Less than you would think. Of course, there's people on social media that will come at me. I've done a lot of messages on how I stopped smoking marijuana and just how bad marijuana is for you. I mean, I used to be the guy for 20 years saying how great marijuana was and how it wasn't going to hurt you and it was so much better than drinking. And do your research on it. Go Google Dr. Andrew Huberman, THC. He did a 2.5-hour talk on it. It is insane. From the most shocking thing is if you start smoking marijuana between 18 and 24 and you're a chronic user, and chronic means you use more than 2 times a week, you have a 25% more likelihood of having psychosis and schizophrenia. Like, hello. And weed actually increases your anxiety. It doesn't decrease it. So when I say some of those messages, I get a lot of haters coming back and just saying that's not the case. But no, in general, I'm pretty convincing. Like, people who know me have seen me before and after, and they're like, you're a different human being. You look different. Your face looks different. You talk different. And so I'm like living proof that maybe this guy's on to something here.
Dang, bro. Would you say, I'm just curious, would you say alcohol is worse than smoking though? Like when it comes to like the side effects and what happens to you?
I said that for 20 years. I think alcohol is more destructive to the human population in general because of the hangovers, the misproductivity of work, and the violence that ensues. Cops used to be one of my favorite shows. You never saw them going to the house of a guy getting high and beating his wife, right? It was always involved alcohol.
Yeah.
So from the standpoint of the damage to your brain and your body, they're both really bad, actually. Yes. Alcohol in any amount will increase your cancer risk. But if you're going to ask me, like, to society in general, alcohol is, it's bad.
It's crazy. Worse. Crazy how it's legal, huh? It's very bad.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
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 Maybe because maybe for the regulation, but anyway, to regulate it. They had prohibition. They tried to stop it, but ain't nobody stopping people from getting drunk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, remember, what do we talk about? Money, right? Just follow the money trail. Why should marijuana be legal? Look, it should be legal. I think everything should be legal. Mm-hmm. But why are they legalizing it, knowing that it's really bad for you? They're legalizing it because they're gonna make a bunch of money.
Yeah, brother.
I think Joe, did you have a comment? It looked like you've been.
Yeah. I don't want to necessarily I don't have any questions or doubts or comments, but I've always, especially the past couple of years, have been on this journey as well. Like the last 8 to 10 years, we kind of started on this journey and gotten deeper and deeper. So again, I just wanted to kind of reiterate the comment I put in earlier, just thanking you for sharing this and for what you're doing. And we definitely want to do that because I know both of us, definitely still have mental things. And really, the deeper we've gone, you grow, but you also start to see too, like at times it can almost be more frustrating because you are like, man, I know I'm growing, but there's still things I know that I don't know. I know that I don't know that I need to deal with. So I'm excited to hop on that call with you and just connect more. But again, I just wanted to appreciate what you're doing. And it is funny because we even get a lot of pushback from family and friends, when we talk about stuff like this. And people just don't want to accept. I think people deep down, to an extent, know, maybe not at a conscious level, but to an extent, subconsciously at least. But man, people just do not want to accept it. They just don't want to accept the reality that there's something they could do about it. Or that, like you said, it's not so much you're screwed up, just things happen. So now it's just identifying it and moving forward instead of just putting your head in the sand and saying, well, I'm just going to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe, great points, man. Thank you for commenting. You cannot suffer if you live in the truth. And most human beings live outside of the truth. They live in the untruth. That's what's causing them all the suffering. So there's a little bit of heartache where you've actually got to have to go back and be like, yeah, when was this shit? What was the pain that I felt all these years? But then you deal with it, and then life is just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So AJ, you put your score. I won't read back your score to the world, but let me just tell you, based on your score, if you did the work, again, whether it was me or go find someone else qualified, that doesn't matter to me. Just know that score, your life could I don't know what you think of your life right now, but whatever you think of your life, like if it's here, we're talking about like whoa, things could get so much better.
AJ works for, he works for me. I tell him to come on because I'm like, yo, man, step, I want you to learn. So he's a VA in the Philippines. So AJ, what's up, man? What do you got to say? Something to say?
No, I'm all good. Thank you, Brad, for this opportunity.
You're welcome. And let me tell you, one of your fellow country people, well, she's a woman actually, was one of my first clients. And she's in her mid-30s. She had extreme anxiety. She had migraine headaches. She slept 2 to 3 hours a night. She had a terrible relationship with her spouse and her husband. And after 3 1-hour sessions with me, she's now sleeping 8 to 10 hours a night. She has no more migraines. She has no more anxiety. And she's like, this was months and months ago. She's like, my relationship with my son and husband are so much better. So it works.
There you go, brother.
I actually do have one more quick question if we still have time.
Yeah,
man.
Got it.
So, I know you'd love to be able to say, man, it's like 100% hit rate, but like, what do you find the challenges are, or what maybe holds people back when you're going through this, that those times where people still have a hard time breaking through or making changes or seeing transformation?
So the only person who hasn't seen extreme success with my coaching program is a young man who was financially very successful. I'm careful now when I used to talk about successful, it was always about finances. Now it doesn't. I mean, look how many rich people kill themselves every day. So you should really look at your definition of success, because we're all taught in America that it's all about money and it has nothing to do with money. The guy who brought me through my program, Larry, his definition of success is a daily optimized experience, repeatable over time. So this young man that I was dealing with, who hasn't gotten the full benefit of the program, he felt like if he stopped the negative self-talk, it would zap his drive in his business. And it's just another untruth he's living under, because it's just the opposite. I've shown you with my business that when I switched to making an impact and not try to fight for money. So that's really the only thing. When I talk to people, 2 of the questions I ask them are you absolutely 100% certain that you want change in your life? Number 2, do you have a willingness to look at things in a different perspective? And then 3, do you want a change of state? Do you want to change your emotional state? If someone answers yes to all 3 of those questions, then they have the opportunity to radically change.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Sounds like that guy doesn't want to change, Brad.
Yeah.
I think he wants to change, but I think he's scared. I think he's in the familiar zone, and he makes a lot of money, so financially he's comfortable, and he's just like he's just not ready, which is fine. I mean, I'm never going to leave his side, and he's gonna come around when he's ready. And everyone needs to change in their own time. When you're ready to stop suffering, you'll stop suffering. Bottom line.
Man, it's so interesting you saying financially successful is like, I mean, how many people in the world base their success and their self-worth off of money? Like, it's probably like so many, right? Like this guy you're talking about, like, hey, he's not handling those things, maybe because he's successful, right? But that's not where the success comes.
Yeah, I mean, you can have all the money in the world. Some of the most loneliest people in the world are billionaires. Like you look at all the famous people, all the actors, the princes of the world, the Michael Jacksons, who have more money than they ever knew what to do with, and they're dead. They took their own life through drugs, because they were so pained and hurt from what the story that they were telling themselves, that all the money in the world didn't make a difference.
I'm wondering, it sounds like money's a curse right there.
It's not. It has nothing to do with money. It has to do with the thinking. It's how we started this whole podcast, this whole show.
It's the thinking.
I said the basis of most every problem in your life right now comes down to one thing, and that's your thinking. So all we have to do is train your mind through a process, a natural process called neuroplasticity, to grow those new neural pathways, have different thoughts, and different thoughts will radically change your behavior in your life.
Man, that's a great way to wrap this up, because it's true. Like the thought would be like, money's the problem. It's like, no, money's is like an inanimate object. Like it's the way that it affects you and the way you think about it. And this all comes down to, your thoughts again.
Yeah, money can cause stress if you don't have your bills met. But I think, the famous study is once you make $80,000 a year, it doesn't matter if you make 80 or 800,000 or 8 million, the more money won't bring you any more happiness.
No. And there says the man with the yacht. I love it. Cool. Well, Brad, anything else you'd like to leave us with before we wrap up?
No, just if you want to join the group, just go to bradchandler.com/Facebook. And if you want to follow me on social media or schedule a call with me, go to bradchandler.com/contact.
Yeah. And Brad, I want to thank you. And I'm sure everybody here wants to thank you for taking your time to meet with us. I want to get your message out there to the people that join my group and the influence that I have. So Brad has been gracious enough to say, hey, you're able to come out to our mentorship program like once a month and give us some good nugs. And I really appreciate you for being willing to do that, Brad.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Anything else for Brad, everybody, before we let him go? Are we good? If not, we can just say thank you, and we'll see you next time. And we'll go check. Like I said, with the Facebook group, just post in the Discord, and we'll put it out there for people.
Okay, sounds great.
All
Brad,
right.
thanks again.
You're welcome. See you guys.
Have a good one, Brad. Check you later.
Bye.
All right. Cool.